Okay, let's start. So this uh, class we are going to talk little about compute service provided by OCA infrastructure. Last session we discussed about the basic fundamentals, right? What is region, what is tenancy, and what is availability domain, fault domain. So all those basic stuffs we discussed in the last class. So in this session, I am going to cover a compute service. Okay, and again this is going to be again a fundamentals, right? So now, what is compute service? So first let us go through the theoretical thing. The compute service, basically your compute service help you to create a compute instance. Okay. Basically you are going to provision the new server. Okay, that's what we are going to see. So earlier in the legacy times, what we used to do, we have to procure the server, and first we have to contact sales team, and we have to pick up the right model and get the details about the costs. But all those things, are, it's unimaginable how we managed all those stuffs in those times. Now you can just click in a matter of 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 5 minutes. You can have your own server. So every cloud providers, they are giving different types of servers. In a cloud terminology, we have to call it as instance, compute instance. What type of instance? So you should understand, what type of instance OCA is providing. So OCA is the only cloud service, cloud provider. They are giving you bare metal servers, bare metal instance. That means it's a dedicated physical hardware. No virtualization is involved. So if you are going to use very high-end application, right? You cannot compromise on performance even in a matter of second, right? Or because of security, right? You cannot go with VM. Then OCA is the only cloud provider giving you the option to provision bare metal instance. Wherever I use the word instance, it is nothing but server. Other one is virtual machine. Okay, this is a most commonly used one in OCA world. So VM is nothing but VM also going to run on top of bare metal instance, going to use the same hardware, but same bare metal server you can have n number of virtual machines. So you may be using one virtual machine, and the other customer, he may be using other virtual machine from the same physical hardware. Okay, so you never know who is your neighbor, right? So it's a virtualization involved. Okay, all virtualization involved, hypervisor and everything involved here. Okay, so basically you can create two types of instance, that is bare metal and virtual machine. In my experience so far, I have never seen a single customer using bare metal. Okay, I didn't get the opportunity to work on that, but definitely there may be a customers who demands only bare metal servers. But the commonly most of the customers, they are using virtual machine. Okay. Now before we get into further, when you create instance, okay, when you create an instance, you should create, you should, you should choose the image. For example, we have Oracle Linux 8 image, Windows image, and several other images also OCA is providing you. So far I have used only Linux and Windows image, and you have n number of different shapes. Shapes is nothing but, all this terminology you should understand, right? So shape is nothing but it's a predefined template. Okay. For example, if I use standard 2.1 shape, okay, so Oracle will provide you 1 OCPU or 15 GB memory. If I choose standard 2.2 shape, Oracle may provide me 30 GB memory and 2 OCPU. So every shape is associated with number of OCPUs and related memory. So depends on your application, the type of application you are going to use or the type of database you are going to use, depends on your database configuration, your SGA, PGA, all those stuffs, you have to decide on the shape. Okay, so shape is nothing but a kind of template. Okay, so if I choose standard 2.1 shape, that means it's a predefined OCPUs are available. You cannot say I will choose standard 2.1 but I need 100 OCPUs. It's not possible because it's a predefined template. If you need 100 OCPUs, then you have to go for standard 2.100 or 2.x, whatever it is. If you need one OCPU means you have to go for the related template, the related shape. Okay. And in shape also, we have different types. Okay. As I told you, it's a standard shape. And we have one more shape called dense IO shape. Dense IO shape is nothing but, same, it is like you will get the OCPU memory, that concept and all same, but if you are performance, again performance is your high priority, you can go for dense IO because you will get that local SSD storage. So dense IO shape always comes with local SSD storage. And we have one more shape called GPU shape. You want higher amount of hardware acceleration. For example, gaming softwares you are going to install, then you have to go for GPU. And one more shape, I think, high platform compute. You are going to do some calculation, scientific calculation, then you have to go for that. Normally, customer go for standard shape. Okay. And when you talk about the shape, recently it's an evolution. Oracle came up with one more type called flexible shape. So what I told you earlier, if you choose standard 2.1, that means Oracle will determine the OCPUs and the memory. You don't have any control. If I use standard 2.2, Oracle will determine the number of OCPU and the memory. But Oracle came up with new concept called flexible shape, flexi shape. That means you can choose a number of OCPUs and you can choose a memory. So that means you can customize your OCPUs, you can customize your memory. For example, I need 4 OCPUs and I need 30 GB memory, or I need 11 OCPUs, I need 10 GB memory. I can customize. Later if I want, I can increase. Okay, so this is flexible shape, and nowadays most of the customers, they are using this new feature. So based on your OCPUs, the number of VNIC you will get it. You don't have any control to choose the VNIC. And one more thing I want to talk about, we have one type of instance called burstable instance. You can burst the instance. For example, when you have to go for burstable instance, mostly your application is going to be idle, but you will see some sudden spike. Okay, in that case you can go for burstable instance. So burstable instance will give you some base level CPU guarantee. For example, when you choose burstable instance, let us say I am choosing standard 1.1 OCP, so I am getting only one OCPU, and in that I am going to use the burstable instance. So then I have to define what percentage of base level performance you require. If I say 10%, that means your instance is going to utilize only 10% of one OCPU always. But all of a sudden some sudden spike is happening. Sudden spike. That time it will use that 100% of that one OCPUs. Once that spike is over, again it will come down to 10%. So most of the time you are going to pay for only 10% of OCPUs. Whenever the spike happens, can happen. So that because of that spike, 70% of the burst can happen. That means you are going to pay that 70% of that OCPU only for that particular moment. Then again it will come down to 10%. Okay, so whenever the spike, when most of the times your application is going to be idle, sometimes the sudden spike happens. That time I want to use the full amount of OCPU. Then you can go for burstable instance. You can use that option. Okay, then capacity type, on-demand capacity. On-demand capacity is the default one. Okay, and whenever you need, you can use that capacity. Pre-emptive capacity. This is when you have to use preemptible capacity. For example, I'm spawning the instance using preemptible capacity, but that means when that capacity is needed somewhere else by OCI, they will terminate it. So there is no guarantee that your instance will be available up and available all the time. Okay, OCI, you have the preemptible instance, you are using it, you are using that capacity, but whenever Oracle demands, whenever OCI needs some resource, they can terminate your instance. So that means it is very cheap, okay, compared to on-demand capacity. But there is no guarantee that your instance will be up and running all the time. So you are okay with that. Okay, you are doing some sort of testing. Even in between, if my instance can be terminated, you can go for that. Reserved capacity, what you can do, you can reserve the capacity for the future case. For example, currently I am going to spin the instance for the primary, and later I want to spin the instance for my DR. Now you can reserve. Okay, but the charges, instead of spinning now, then you have to pay. Now it's reserve means you still need to pay, but the charge is less. Okay, so once you terminate the instance, it will go for reserve. So for the reserved usage, the the charge is different. Okay, and one more thing, dedicated instance, dedicated capacity. That means earlier I told you, you are creating the instance that will run on top of one physical server, bare metal server, but you don't have any guarantee that all your VMs are going to spin in the same physical server. You, in the same physical server, you have other customers. You have the VMs which are spawned by other customers. Okay, but due to some security reason, I am going to use the virtual machine, but I want the dedicated host. That is, in the dedicated bare metal server, I don't want to allow the VMs from other customers. That means you can go for dedicated capacity. Okay, so this is very fundamental. Let us recap. We have two types: bare metal, VM. Burstable instance means it will give you the guarantee for base level performance. Whenever you need, whenever the sudden spike happens, it will increase the capacity, and but it can sustain the workload with a limited capacity and can use the 100% when the spike happens. Shape type, standard, dense IO for performance. You are going to get the local SD storage, GPU, and high platform capacity. Flexi shapes, currently customers started using it. You can customize your number of OCPUs and you can customize your memory, but your VNIC will spawn proportional to your number of OCPUs. Capacity types, on demand, preemptible. Preemptible means there is no guarantee that it will up and running all the time. OCA can terminate your instance without noticing you. Reserved capacity, you can reserve the instance capacity for future use, but still you have to pay, but the charge is less. Dedicated capacity is nothing but you are going to use the entire OCA will not spin the VM in that physical server from the other customers. Okay. So now this is the basic concept. Now you should understand. So once you log into the console, you will get compute instance. Okay. So instance is the compute host. Choose between VM or bare metal server. Okay. So first I have to give the instance name. Okay. This compartment we will see later. Okay. So last class we discussed about AD, right? AD is nothing but data center. So each region has maximum three ADs. Most of the regions currently have one AD. So you have to choose which AD you are going to place your instance. Okay, now I told you the capacity type. Most of the customers will use on-demand capacity, place shared host using on-demand capacity. Preemptible, capacity reservation, dedicated host. So only this last one is dedicated virtual machine. All other things are shared by other tenants. Image and shape. Shape is a template that determines the number of CPUs, amount of memory. So image, I am using Linux 8. Change image means you can use Windows, etc. And shape, right? So currently virtual machine standard E4 flex shape. Okay. So if you see here, you can choose virtual machine or bare metal. If I choose virtual machine, it is provided by Intel, AMD and all. Okay. So now flex shape. See, if you see flex shape, number of OCPUs I can choose. Okay. So number of OCPUs I choose only one. But if you see here, I chose 5, memory I chose 80, 11, memory I chose 176. So you can customize. Instead of getting it from template, you can customize. Okay, that is the latest feature introduced by OCI. And burstable. Normally we don't use this. Burstable means, okay, I want to use most of the time only 12.5% of my OCPU. So 95% of the times it is going to use only 12 point, you are going to pay for only 12.5% of one OCPU. But sometimes the sudden spike happens, so depending on the spike, it will burst up to 100% OCPU. Okay, so if you see here, by default you will find only flex shape, but if you want to use this legacy shapes, standard, then sol, GPU, everything, you have to choose this specific, choose the previous generation shapes. You have to choose with this one. Okay, so bare metal, if you choose bare metal, then you will get the respective shapes. Okay, so today we talk about, still we have not completed the instance provisioning, but these are all the things you should understand, right? What kind of shape, what kind of capacity, where you have to place, and what is image, and what is flex shape, everything you should understand before spinning the instance using console. So next class we will continue. Thank you.